Hi, welcome to Payday. Well, not exactly. Welcome to Money Mastery with Dee. And today our topic is retirement income, a retirement paycheck. It's one of those things that a lot of people don't even consider. They work all their lives. They get a paycheck from their employer. The money comes in, they do the work, and life kind of chugs along. But as we transition from working to retirement, everything changes. And we need to know how we're going to have money to support our lifestyle going into retirement. That transition is tricky. For one thing, what do you do when you get up each day? That's the topic for another video. Today, we're going to focus on how do you create that retirement paycheck? Where does that income come from? So the right choices can help you have a wonderful retirement, plenty of money, a good experience, and confidence that what you're doing is going to work out. Other strategies might leave you short of cash. So while we're working, most folks are trying to, they seek out dependable income, they save their money for the future and think about how to invest. But once we stop receiving that steady paycheck, we have to look to other places. The first place most people will be looking to is Social Security. It's a terrific program. It has warts. I won't argue that. But in general, almost everybody you know, their Social Security income is going to be a big component of their retirement income and their retirement success. So vote for Social Security. Yay, it's a good thing. What's unique about Social Security is it's government guaranteed and it's indexed for inflation, sort of, at least a little bit. We'll come back to why that's important. But seeking secure, consistent, dependable income is more challenging than relying on Social Security. If you know anybody on Social Security and they tell you what they get each month, you know that that's probably not enough for you to maintain your standard of living. So let's look at some of the other sources of income. So of course, the first is Social Security. Most of the time when we're advising folks, the way to best maximize the amount they'll receive from Social Security is to wait until age 70 to get that maximum amount. For most folks born after, let's see, about 1960 or later, the full retirement age is 67. If you wait between age 67 and age 70, your Social Security monthly payments go up by 8% per year, plus whatever inflation adjustments. There's no place that you can get a guaranteed 8% bump on your investments any place I know. That's a little apples to oranges, but 8% is a really good improvement in return if your situation will allow it. Applying for Social Security sooner reduces your benefits. There may be situations where that makes sense, but most of the time, the longer you can wait, the bigger the check and the more money that you'll receive from Social Security overall. So that's number one source. Number two is a shrinking, itty-bitty, tiny, far less common source, and that's a company pension. Now, there's still some of you out there that have company pensions, and to you, nice job. Good, well done you. Most folks don't have access to company pensions any longer. So lovely to have those. If you can build them in, that's great, but most of the time we don't see it. Finally, we have investments. There was a time, your parents' or grandparents' time, where retiring folks would have a three-legged stool. They'd have Social Security, a company pension, and their own savings. And that three-legged stool really created some stability in retirement for those folks. It may not have been an expansive retirement, but it was pretty secure. As I mentioned just now, pension plans are really, really rare. It's a confluence of change in tax laws, economic changes, and just cultural expectations that have caused pensions to disappear. But that just leaves us with a two-legged stool. Now, I don't know about you. Would you prefer 3 legs or 2 legs? I'm all for 3. If it's not there, we're going to have to work extra hard to make sure that 2-legged stool works for you. So let's focus on those personal investment accounts. If you've been saving diligently over the years, there's a variety of accounts that you may have accumulated savings or investments in. The first one is a taxable brokerage account, one that has no special tax characteristics at all. Next, there's traditional retirement accounts, 401ks, 403bs, IRAs, KIOs, SEPs. Those all have money that the money hasn't been taxed yet as you withdraw the money. it will be taxable at ordinary income tax rates. You may have Roth investments, either in a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k. You've already paid tax on that money. When you pull that money out, no tax. And finally, there's a newer animal called a health savings account that was not taxed going in. It's not being taxed as the amount grows. And if you use it for certain health expenses, it won't be taxed as you pull it out. Really one of my favorite savings vehicles in all the tax code because it's triple tax free. But those 4 accounts are what you're going to be planning your retirement paycheck around. And you need to create a strategy on how to do this. It's important you don't wait too long to start thinking about how to do this. If you can do it maybe 10 years out and sort of create a glide path into that retirement experience, that would be ideal. If you need to do it sooner, it can be done, just maybe fewer choices. But the more money you have in each of those buckets, the more flexibility you'll have when you reach retirement. So there's like 8 different things to think about when we're considering factors as we design a strategy, a retirement paycheck strategy. You know, what we've talked about Social Security, probably maximizing this previously, but we're going to need to also look at tax efficiency. I mentioned in each of those buckets has a different tax experience. Are there other sources of guaranteed income available to you? Deciding what your withdrawal rate will be. How does that play into the required minimum distributions that eventually at age 72 that you will be subject to? What investment strategy will you need to sustain this retirement paycheck? And as well as just general logistics around this. It's like, right, this is not for the faint of heart. None of this is hard, but it's complex. It's a little bit like learning chess. The basic moves of the pieces aren't that difficult. How does it work together? How would the Queen's Gambit play into your retirement paycheck? It all depends on the holdings that you have, your risk tolerance, your lifestyle. So let's talk about tax efficiency. How do we do your retirement in a way that allows you to pay the minimum required amount of tax? We don't want to evade taxes, but we certainly can plan to reduce them. We will look going forward at what your projected income will be and identify years, perhaps, where you're going to have a lower taxable income. They exist, especially if you retire before you start Social Security. You may have a couple of years there where you're going to have a significantly lower taxable income. That's a great year to either do Roth conversions or pull some money out of IRAs so that future RMDs are less. So we look for those opportunities to take advantage of how the tax law is written. And Dee Dee, you'll ask, the tax law changes all the time. It absolutely does. So we plan with the best available current information. And then as things adjust, we go from there. Rather than just throw up our arms and ignore it, we use the best information available to us at the moment. So those are different strategies around tax efficiency. And then we look at other sources of guaranteed income. One would be an immediate annuity. And that's a very special and unique animal. You give an insurance company a bucket of money and they agree to pay money back to you a set amount per month. Generally, these are not adjusted for inflation, so that's a downside. They're tied to the health of a particular insurance company. That is another downside as well, but the upside is based on your choices. It's money you cannot outlive. Really powerful. And you might say, oh, I really want one of those. Well, be sure you vet the person you're working with. A fee-only financial advisor is a great source to get unbiased information so that you can make a good, informed choice on an immediate annuity, because there's a lot of other kinds of annuities that have bells and whistles that if what you're doing is trying to create, say, a pension or a companion to your Social Security income, you may not need all those other bells and whistles. Another option to create guaranteed income is a reverse mortgage. This can work in a couple of ways in retirement. If you discover that all of your expenses in retirement are just a little more than you can handle and you still have a mortgage, a reverse mortgage can come in and just eliminate that payment. It isn't new income, but it's reducing a big expense and has the effect of balancing the ins and outs for you. In other situations, you have maybe your house paid off and you do need a little bit of extra income. You can do a reverse mortgage and take draws against the amount that basically increasing your loan on the home. So a couple different ways to use that. And again, there's a lot of folks out there selling them. I highly recommend working with a fee-only financial advisor, a fiduciary, to help you understand what your choices are, how it would work for you, and connect you with a reputable source. Another strategy that's really important as we create your retirement paycheck is setting a sustainable withdrawal rate. So there's what we would call, conventional wisdom, right? Not very conventional, not always wise, but the starting point of 4% per year. In our low interest rate and relatively low return environments, 4% might be on the high side for folks. But the idea behind the 4% income is the first year you start, you take 4% of the portfolio at the beginning of the year. That's going to be your distribution. And then each year you adjust it for inflation. So if inflation is 1 or 2%, it's not adjusting a whole heck of a lot. But again, that 4% might be high. And the other really important thing to remember about that study that came up with this 4% is they had at least 50% of their portfolio in equities, in stocks, in the stock market. And I know some of you out there are going, ooh, I'm retired. I don't want to have any of that risk. I want to remind you, it's absolutely important that you maintain a broadly diversified portfolio in retirement, because your time horizon isn't really just the next 2 or 3 years. It's 10, 20, 30, 40 years, depending on how old you are when you retire. So it's really critical not to just go all to bonds when you retire, because inflation will eat away at your nest egg, and your risk of running out of money is much higher than if you keep a nice diversified portfolio. I know it seems counterintuitive, but it's really what the numbers and the research shows us. So another strategy, required minimum distributions. If you have any of the traditional retirement accounts that I've mentioned, you're going to be required to take money out starting at age 72 under current law. On the IRS site, says exactly how much you take out each year, and it's actually not a bad calculation. It's actually another way to calculate how much to take out of your portfolio each year, with the idea that you won't outlive your money. So that's kind of nice. Remember, when you're taking money out of IRAs, that's going to be taxable. When you withdraw the money, the institution should offer you the option to have taxes withheld. I highly, strongly, emphatically encourage you to have them take out those taxes on your behalf. Pardon me. And back to investment strategy. I mentioned to sustain a 30-year retirement, we need a well-diversified portfolio. Sometimes folks go, I don't want to touch the principal. I just want to live off interest and dividends. That can be really hard to do, especially in our current environment with high growth in the stock market. Dividends as a percentage of your investment are very tiny. Interest is very small. So it's hard to generate much income. Maybe you don't need much income. If that's great, if that works for you, that's great. Power to you. Most folks can't do that. What we do instead is create portfolios that work off more of a total income approach. It isn't just interest and dividends, but it's interest, dividends, and growth. And we look at the whole portfolio, do appropriate rebalancing, and create cash in some years through the sale of some assets that have grown. So that works out pretty well for most folks. If we have an appropriately diversified portfolio, you automatically have created a bucketed approach, because you have your highly liquid assets, which should cover your expenses for the next 1 to 3 years, depending on what your world looks like, as well as the equity focused growth assets. So if you want, you can divvy those up in different buckets and keep an eye on them. But in general, by creating a good diversified portfolio, you've already automatically created a bucketed approach. So using these strategies of looking at where your income can come from, the Social Security, maybe a pension, and your investments, as well as your investment strategies, your tax strategies, and your lifestyle needs, you can create a retirement paycheck for yourself. If you've got questions about this, please let us know in the comments. Reach out to us on our site. Again, this is Dee Dee with Money Mastery with Dee Dee. Happy to have you as always. Have a financially fun day.